You're listening to the More Than the Music podcast, episode 17, featuring part 1 of my interview with Joel Houston and Taya Smith of Hillsong United.
Mikey, our producer, we were working on writing the record. We're in LA, we're in California actually. You know, he'd FaceTime his little newborn baby. He was, 4 or 5 weeks old at the time, every day. And he was a miracle baby to begin with, to be honest. And then he gets home, and the day he gets home, they take him in for his 6-week checkup, and they say, hey, he has a hole in his heart. Mikey just calls me in a panic, and next thing you know, they spent the next month in the children's hospital, and, little Elliot basically deteriorated. It was a rough season. Man, my heart was breaking.
You're about to hear the strange way Taya joined the band and sang one of the biggest worship songs ever, why Joel moved from Australia to New York to be a pastor, and how they recorded every song from their album of Dirt and Grace live at historic places in the Holy Land. I'm Justin Paul, along with Joel Houston and Taya Smith from Hillsong United, and we're going to talk about a lot more than just the music.
More Than the Music is hosted by Justin Paul, a touring musician turned national radio personality who loves the dramatic, humorous, sometimes tragic, and often inspiring story behind the songs from your favorite artists. You can connect with the show at wayfm.com/Justin. Now here's your host, Justin Paul.
So thrilled to be joined by Joel Houston and Taya Smith from Hillsong United. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Ah, it's amazing. Thank you.
We're going to talk about the brand new album of Dirt and Grace, which you guys filmed in Israel. You went to some of the most sacred, holy places on earth and recorded and filmed these songs. I mean, what an amazing experience that we're going to get to walk through tonight.
Yeah, it was incredible. I still we pinch ourselves to kind of go, wait, did that really happen? And
yeah,
it was a whirlwind, but it's been amazing.
Hillsong has been around for a while. I mean, the church began in 1983, and then, of course, Hillsong Worship, Hillsong United, Young and Free. There's so much creative music coming out of this church. But catch me up a little bit on how Hillsong United got to where we are today with this record and all the success you've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, look, we grew up in the youth ministry in church. Australia is kind of a bit of a secular nation. I went to a Christian school, and there was 4 Christians in my entire school, And so when we were in high school, our youth ministry was amazing. Really passionate, wild, completely insane and crazy. We had youth leaders who really believed in us, even when we didn't, and gave us the opportunity to just kind of do whatever we were passionate about in a way that meant we could serve God. It was like, to serve God, you don't have to go into ministry like this. You can do it, whatever. We loved music. We loved art. We loved making films and stupid skit videos. And so that's what we would do. And we had an incredible move of God, and all these songs kind of just started flowing out of our youth ministry. And at the time, our church was already kind of known for its worship music, I guess. And it was a different kind of sound, and we were allowed to kind of just run with it. And so we recorded these songs. Never in our wildest dreams would have imagined that that's what we would still be doing, basically, because we're not young people anymore, or not as young. But basically, the songs traveled, and it gave us the opportunity to travel, and we're still very much a part of our church. All of us, everybody involved in the team, builds church locally, our pastors at home, and we still get to do this. And so that's kind of been a 15-year journey now, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
It's been amazing kind of watching even the music and the sound, the projects kind of grow up, I guess, as we've grown up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so with this last record, which was called Empires last year, when we were writing the album, before we had anything, we kind of just started with, let's just read what Jesus had to say. And so we read the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, and the Beatitudes. I think it really just struck a chord in us where we're at and where the world's at right now, and just this realization that we live in a very dichotomous world. People are increasingly divided. And I think that kind of just set us up to kind of look at, what is it that Jesus is? What's the truth of who Jesus is and his way in the midst of all the opinions and all of the, this way or that side. And so that the whole record kind of came out of that place. And then Mikey, who plays guitar, he produced the record, just kind of said one time we were recording the songs, because when you have a song, you can do it a bunch of different ways. And you try to be as true to the song as you can be, but we're like, imagine if we got re-recorded this album, on the Mount of Beatitudes, is what kind of we were aiming for. And it was a bit of that'd be amazing. And then we got the opportunity to do it. So for Easter this year, we went over, and my dad, who's the pastor of Hillsong Church, he preached his Good Friday sermon from the tomb, and his Sunday sermon from the tomb, and it was kind of a really amazing experience. But it meant we got to go there, and we were going to record a few songs. And when we got there, we just realized that the landscape is so incredible. It was, I think, all of our first trip to Israel.
Yeah.
Such an amazing place, like the clash of cultures, it's beautiful and it's kind of messy, and but it's this giant, literal, metaphorical place that just brings the Bible to life, and even the songs to life. So we were just like, let's just record as much as we can. So we ended up recording the entire record in different locations around Israel. And then we recorded a few extra songs as well on the back of it. And it was just an amazing experience. And it was wild. Like, we would literally, they were like 18-hour days, 3 or 4 different locations. We had like this incredible production team, but everything we recorded in the location. And we would, while the team was setting up, we would kind of just be sitting there trying to figure out the arrangements. Like, we hadn't prearranged anything. It was just like, all right, how are we going to do this? And they'd be like, we're ready. Okay, the generator's on. Like, let's go. And so we'd be like, we'd just play the songs 2 or 3 times and really just kind of let the landscape and where we were just dictate the sound and the moments and what we sung. And I think you feel it,
Yeah.
And I'm really, really excited.
Well, not only getting to hear the songs as we're going to hear tonight, but also you're seeing the visuals too, and the videos and the DVD.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a stunning thing to watch, and to know that you were performing those songs in the very places where Jesus walked himself. I mean, what an amazing feeling, Taya.
Yeah, it was definitely surreal. And like Joe was saying, like, I still pinch myself now and I'm still trying to go over it. And even just the fact that I feel like the Bible literally did come to life in the context. I feel like that's what I walked away with, that there's so much more meaning even to these songs because they're based on scripture, and to be there where Jesus was preaching the greatest message ever that was against what was happening at the time. And it was like probably a once in a lifetime kind of trip. And my favorite thing is to sit down and actually watch it, because I feel like when you see it, you hear it, but you just get it in like a full perspective kind of way. And I still can't believe it actually happened.
So going back to how you guys get started, Hillsong United started as a youth group band in the church that your parents started, right?
Yep.
So you're a preacher's kid. Did you have one of those cool like youth group names back then? Like Impact or Effect or something like that?
Yeah. Light Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah, which was pretty good.
Light Raiders.
Light Raiders.
Sounds like a football team, man.
Yeah. And then that turned into Wildlife.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's still called Wildlife to this day, our high school youth ministry. And then our young adults ministry still to this day is called Powerhouse. And it has been for about 30 years.
Powerhouse. That sounds like one of those teams that comes and breaks stuff at the church, you know?
Names, we had T-shirts, we had everything, you know?
Now, being a preacher's kid, I know a lot of preacher's kids are like rebels. Was that you as a kid, or were you kind of always like knowing the path that you were going to go?
I think I definitely was a little rebellious. Yes.
We'll leave it there.
No, it's a miracle I'm still here. I had, honestly, the youth ministry, truthfully, the community was so strong that, I loved it. I'm grateful for it. I didn't think I'd be here if it wasn't for our youth pastors. And I think, like youth pastors I applaud them. We had the same youth pastor for 12 years. So I had the same guy in my life, like encouraging me, being there for me when times were tough, when I was going through seasons. And I think that's awesome. And, I think sometimes a lot of guys go into youth ministry because it's like a stepping stone to whatever the next thing is. But I just encourage youth pastors out there to understand, like, it is so valuable to just spend time investing into young people. And that's what we had. And so I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, and now Hillsong Church, there's churches all over the world, from New York to London to Los Angeles. You're actually pastoring the New York campus, right?
Yeah.
So are you in the U.S. most of the time now?
Yeah, I live in the U.S. My family live here in New York, and travel from there. And a couple of our guys live in New York, and the rest of the guys live in Australia, which is fun. But we kind of meet up. Like, we spend so much time together. It's like we just meet up wherever it is in the world, and it feels like we never left.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, is that something like that just kind of happened as the music career took off, or did you have an aspiration as a kid to be a pastor too?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
never. I had no desire to ever sing, lead worship, pastor, to preach. None of it. I loved art. I loved music. I love film. I love all that stuff. And God has a funny way of just kind of taking, all the things that you say you're not going to do, and watching you kind of just cross them off one by one. And, I definitely stumbled into it. But I just know that for me, my prayer has always been to just do the very best with what's in my hand, try and keep it as simple as possible. That's what we've always done with United. That's why we're still doing this, I don't know what next year or the year after that looks like, but right now we have this opportunity, so let's make the most of it with the people who we've got, not always kind of looking to try and make things better or to compete, just like, this is what we have in our hand, let's just be really faithful with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of led us on this incredible journey. I think all of us have like had to constantly step into places that we don't feel like
Comfortable?
Yeah, comfortable. Yeah, I think you sung a song about it. It was called Oceans. But like moving to New York, I just couldn't shake it. Actually, we'd been in Rwanda, of all places, 2008. And on the back of that trip, been a huge year touring. And my friend Mikey, who I mentioned before, who produces our albums, and we grew up together, like kind of just learning music and listening to music. And he'd been playing in like a rock band, you know, doing like Vans Warped Tour. He was playing in like a punk band at the time, but was still really locked in. And he was coming off tour in New York and I was finishing up in Africa. So I flew from Rwanda to New York City and spent a week with like kind of no agenda, just in that place. And on the last night, I was walking from where I had dinner back to my hotel, got lost as you do in New York. It started pouring with rain. I scrambled for the only cover I could find. It was an awning. There was no taxis. There was nothing. It was just pouring with rain. So I turned around, looked at this building, and inscribed in the wall was the William Booth quote, you know, while there remains one dark soul without the light of God, I'll fight to the very end. And I just felt like God spoke to me and just said, you need to come here and start a church that is just opens its doors up to everybody and is a place where anybody in this city can feel welcome. And so our desire has just been to have a church in New York City that reflects the fabric of humanity within the city, everyone. So it's like our desire is that our church looks like the streets. And it is. It's very diverse, multicultural. It's got young people, old people. It's wild. It's imperfect. It's beautiful. It's messy. It's the greatest thing ever. So we're loving it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the church too. I mean, you've gotten a lot of national publicity. You've been able to do things that a lot of churches and even Christian bands haven't been able to do. I mean, national TV shows. You have celebrities singing your songs on Instagram. What has that been like for you guys?
Some of it's a nuisance, to be honest. It's amazing. But, you know, like I said, you know, our desire was when we went to New York was to make sure that our doors were open to the breadth of the city. Now, there's like a lot of influential people in New York City, and there's a lot of people coming and going, and it's like the center of news media. No one cared about Hillsong until there's lines of people in New York City, and people are like, what's this thing, you know? And it's like this new thing. It's like, no, this has been happening for a long time all around the world. But because you're right there in New York, I think the news media kind of grabbed a hold of it. And then, of course, like celebrities are celebrities. You know, they walk into a cafe and, you know, it blows up. So when they walk into church, naturally, that's going to get publicized. And I think our desire is always try to push that aside, but you can't do it. You know, like it's just people aren't interested in the amazing stories of people coming off addiction and, you know, the rows of people who are from the park down the road, but they're super interested the one time, you know.
Well, when Justin Bieber posts a picture of him at Hillsong Church, it's kind of hard to ignore that, you know? But I think what I've seen in the news media and the way you've portrayed yourself and portrayed, you know, the message of Jesus has been so phenomenal. And I'm so appreciative that you've been able to share that on such a national platform.
Thank you, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it for us is just trying to be true to who we are. We've always said, look, our goal is just to still be here in 100 years. When we're all dead, for our church still to be here, you know, and our desire is that above all else, just to keep an open door that helps people see Jesus.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's very interesting how you got in the band too, right? Were you like trying to be a part of Hillsong United? I hear
she
it was
trying
like,
so hard. She sent all these resumes and
I
applications.
hear it was like you were volunteering and then now all of a sudden you're singing on one of the biggest Christian songs ever.
She would stand behind me in worship and sing really loud, you know.
I know those people who come and they sing behind you hoping they'll notice you.
Looking at one of them now.
Yeah, no.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I didn't grow up in Sydney, so I moved there about 6 years ago, and it was actually to get into secular music, which is where I thought that's what I was meant to do, and I had also the privilege to grow up in a Christian family, and so thankful for that. And it was when my parents stopped going to church that I kind of made the decision to really go for me, and that's what I believed in, and it was amazing. And then I moved down to Sydney and knew that I would always serve in church, that I just didn't want to just sit in church and just receive and not do anything. So when I moved down, I decided to become a part of Hillsong Church. And at the time, because I was in retail and just saving up money to try and do the music thing, all I could serve in was the youth ministry. I couldn't make any of the creative nights or anything and be on the worship team. So I was like, God, like, you know, my dreams and desires and that I would love to sing, but if this is all I can do right now, like I'm going to serve in that. So I became a youth leader, and it was probably the best time ever. I did that for about 1.5 to 2 years. And I guess maybe it was kind of like a hidden season in a really good way, because I kind of got to see our senior pastors, Brian and Bobby, and see their heart for the church and their heart for people and the heart for our house, and just getting behind their vision for church and what they were speaking into. And it was kind of the best season ever. And then it was about maybe almost 4 years ago, and I got an opportunity to audition for The Voice, and I thought, oh, like this is my chance. Like this is it. So I auditioned for that and went great, sang all the songs I want you to do and showed them originals, and like, love it. You did great. We'll call you in 2 weeks. And I thought, this is it. And my friend actually said, hey, if you do this, I'll back you. And if you don't do it, I'll back you. But you need to know if you do it, everything's going to change. And so kind of freaked out because I hate change, which is hilarious because we're in different cities every single day. So God's got a sense of humor. And so I just prayed and I said, God, if this is what you want me to do, you open the door. And if it's not what you want me to do, you'll shut it. So I prayed that, just got filled with peace, and then I didn't worry about it anymore. And then about 2 weeks later, I got forced to go on a works holiday, just because in retail you're not allowed to have holidays at the end of the year. So they're like, you need to go now. So I tried to get another week. They said no. Tried to fly back home to see my family, and the prices just went up too high, and I was like, couldn't afford it. So I was like, great, I have a holiday in Sydney that I didn't want. Like, this is awesome. There's probably worse places you could have a holiday, so it's not that bad.
Really?
Yeah. No, so it was awesome. And then on the first day of my holiday, I got a text message from Michael Guy Chisholm, who's our producer and one of the guitarists with United, and he said, hey, we'd love you to come in and do some backing vocals for the latest United project. And I remember I'd actually set that time aside to hang out with my sister because I hadn't seen her much. And then I was sitting at home and I was like, Shez, I just got this message from this guy who I didn't actually really know at the time. And I was like, they want me to come in and do like something for the United project. And she's like, you got to do it 100%. And I was like, okay. So I'm on holidays, we can do this. So I went in, sang some BVs, but I knew it was the melody, but I didn't say anything. And we just sang the song. They're like, we want you to come back the next day. I was like, yeah, I could do that too. So then came back the next day, and then that's the day we recorded Oceans, and came in, learned the verse, sang the verse.
So wait a minute. You came in to record background vocals for Oceans.
Well, background vocals for, I think it was A Million Suns.
We didn't know if she could sing.
Okay.
Truthfully, yeah. We were like, we had this song that wasn't finished, but we knew that it was going to be a contributor to the record. And the night before, we literally were so over time and budget on the record. We were like coming right down to the end of it. And for whatever reason, when we had recorded what is now Oceans, we did it in a girl key. There's always been like at least one female voice within the band. But for different reasons, we didn't have like anybody at that time. Brooke, who'd done a lot of stuff with us for many years, was out touring. Jill, who'd been a part of it many years, had moved to Atlanta. And it was just one of those seasons where it was like, well, we don't know, you know. And we had these last 2 days in the studio. It was a Sunday night, and
Glorious Ruins.
Yeah, we recorded a worship album that night. And at the end of it, Young and Free, it was their first time they ever kind of did something, you know, like here's Young and Free, you know, like they sang Alive and, you know, some other song. And I remember just being so proud because these are all like our little brothers kind of, and like our fam, you know, and they're like killing it. And then I saw Taya, she just had like just this wild hair, curly hair out to here. And she was just like dancing around stage, but she's had a presence about her. I was with Brooke Lidgetwood, and I said, Brooke, like, who's that girl? She's just got an amazing presence. And she's like, yeah, her name's Taya. Like, she serves in the city. She's been here for a couple of years, and she's got an incredible voice. And I'm like, oh, really? Then I don't even think you were singing in church or anything at that time.
I think I'm just doing background vocals like for church.
So we were like, hey, well, we need someone to come and sing this song. Like, do you want to come in tomorrow and just do some backing vocals in inverted commas to see if she could sing? And she could. So the next day we said, can you come back? And she actually arrived at the studio on a skateboard. And I was sitting there with Michael and Maddie Crocker, who I wrote Oceans with, and we just looked at each other and we go, the lyrics aren't finished. Like, we haven't finished the song, and she's here to sing it. And we'd been working on it for like months. I said, Maddie, let's go. Let's just finish these lyrics. We're sitting there. And at the time, it was called Oceans because you have a working title because like you put scratched vocals down when you write a song sometimes. So it was like Oceans of Grace or whatever. And I'm sitting there, and Maddie just goes, I was talking to Solomon, who's, you know, another friend of ours, and he goes, what if you talk about from a perspective of faith, like stepping out of the boat? And it was like, like my head exploded, and it was just like, yeah. And literally we sat there, and as fast as I could write the lyrics down from the first lyric to the last lyric in order, it just dropped, and it felt like such a God drop, like it got to the end of it, and I was like, I think this makes sense, and it feels like it's what we're meant to be saying. And we went back, and she learned it bit by bit. She sung it like 2 or 3 times, and that was it. And then that song did what it did.
So it went from not having a female vocalist, not having lyrics finished, biggest song in the world. Like, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I think you have to give all the glory to God for doing that. Absolutely, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The circumstances didn't really line up to be the biggest song in the world.
Well, and just also, I mean, like, to be honest, who Taya is of far more value than her gift and what she can bring to a record. And I think that's been the biggest gift, because, like, one of the things I love most about Hillsong United, like what we are, is like we're a family, like we've been doing life together. We are there for each other in the good times and the bad times. And it's not easy to be, a single girl stepping out on the road for months, really, with a whole bunch of guys,
Mm-hmm.
And she's just been amazing from day one, just kind of stepped in, just felt like family. She's a better person off the stage and at home. It was definitely a God thing, you can't explain it any other way.
So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, you are mine.
Here Now, you guys recorded this near an empty tomb.
So, yeah, it was first song on the record. It's really an introduction, and the whole song's about presence, like understanding why we're here, where we're here. If there was one thing that you want people to take away from the album as a whole, it's just a greater revelation of the fact that God is with us. I think there's just so much power in that. That God is not this distant, dormant, but he's with us. He's God Emmanuel. I was thinking about, when we start a worship night, and so often it's like the first song, doesn't matter what it is, it could be oceans, and people are still like wide-eyed. They're kind of looking at the lights, and they're looking at who's on stage and who's standing where and what someone's wearing or what, and I don't know what. It just feels like it takes time. And I was like, if we had a prayer at the start of a worship service, what would it be? And it would just be that, just stop worshiping from our brain and worship from our heart, And I think our head and the heart are at war all the time, and God's after our heart, and there's so much about him that you can't make sense of. In fact, everything about God, really, it doesn't make sense logically, and that's what makes him God. And that's why people who are really intelligent have a hard time accepting God, because they can't fathom it. They can't make sense of it. And so even our senses, like our worship experience is a sensory experience, but from the get-go, what God's interested is beyond our senses, the inside, dealing with the inside stuff. And so that's the prayer. It's understanding that the love of God doesn't make sense. His grace doesn't make sense. Faith defies logic, But these are the things we are saved by grace through faith, And it's like, I thought it was cool because we actually recorded it by the empty tomb. Now, if Jesus didn't rise again, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Then none of it makes sense. Then it actually, it's all falls apart. But if it's true that Jesus was raised from the dead, then everything, the whole Bible, start to finish, comes to life and has power now in our life. But you have to be okay with that. What do you mean? Like you die? Like you don't come back to life again? It's like, whether or not people say, oh, well, is it the tomb? It's one of 2 locations where people say it was maybe the tomb, but nonetheless, it's a tomb right there by Golgotha. It was an amazing experience. It was raining, and there's like, it's a wild place because like Golgotha, which is the skull in the cliff, it's a bus terminal. There's all these buses, and it's like Muslim prayers like sounding out through the sky, and it's like we were actually there watching 2 guys shoot up heroin like underneath Golgotha, which was just a wild thing. And we're singing these songs, and it was like this sensory experience of just like wildness. And the funny thing was, like you're in this very special place, like, but it didn't feel maybe like how you would think it did. Like it wasn't like you were there like, man, this feels like such a holy place.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's the point, because he's not there. He's not in that tomb. And I thought that was a really wild thing. Like the most spiritual experience I had there was actually in this moment, like looking at this whirlwind of sounds and this, these guys, and looking at the sky and going, man, that's the same sky that Jesus looked at when he cried out to his Father, because somewhere here he hung on that cross. And it was amazing because of Dirt and Grace, the whole premise of the record is understanding that much like Israel, like the geography is amazing. The land is of incredible value and it's beautiful and it holds so much wealth. But yet we are now the geography of God.
Yeah.
We're the temple, like we're the land. And we're made of dirt. Our flesh is made of dirt, but we're made of grace. And I think that's the picture. So it's just like understanding that, hey, like God's Spirit is with us. We are the New Jerusalem. So it was a cool kind of way to start the record.
Well, the song is called Here Now, Madness. And what you just described was this awesome way God found you through this song in the madness. I mean, you're talking about people shoot up heroin right over next to where you're recording this song. Madness is taking place, yet you're singing a song of worship. And I think that's often how it is in our life, in our chaos, in our madness. That is where God finds us.
Yeah, it's about positioning yourself,
Yeah.
I think like we got to get beyond the place where we feel like in order to experience God's presence or for our worship to be acceptable, we have to have all our ducks in a row and like have ticked all our boxes and have avoided all sin for a certain amount of time and wear the right clothes and be in the right place for us to worship God. No, it's designed as a tool that we can sing wherever we are. It's positioning our heart, not positioning all the outside exterior stuff. And that's where God meets us.
Because I know that you are here now. Still my heart, let your voice be all I hear now. Fix my eyes on the things that I can't see now. Spirit breathe, let the wind come out your way. Because I know that you are here now.
Say the Word is track number 2. You recorded this where the Sermon on the Mount took place.
It was pretty crazy when we jumped out of the bus. It's on the side of the hill and it's in a wheat field. Again, I don't know if we had like full permission to be in someone's wheat field, but we hopped out and it was kind of cool. Like even looking back on the photos of just seeing like our tour manager like carrying the keyboard and trying to get it all there, and like all the chords are kind of disappearing because we're literally standing in like a field of wheat, but getting to sing about the Word of God and the finality of His Word, despite what anyone else would say, and even the word of life that it is, and getting to sing there potentially on the side of the hill where Jesus gave the greatest sermon ever. Like it was very surreal and
Yeah, it was
super
cool.
special.
And JD, who has the best radio voice out of all of us.
Yes.
Solo. He read through the Sermon on the Mount, and it was a really cool way to kind of just set it up. And for me, it's like, again, just everything about God is based on His Word. You can't see it. It's not a tangible thing, His breath, but it's tangible because His Word gives light.
Yeah.
It was light in the beginning. If you take away light, you can't see anything. And it's like everything exists within the framework of His Word, and that Word became flesh in Jesus. The whole thing is kind of basically saying like, hey, Jesus is what God has to say. From Genesis all the way to the end of Revelation, the entire Word of God is actually a narrative that comes together in the person of Jesus and what He did. And I think for Christians and for us, like the thing that's been a huge revelation for me is every part of the Bible, if you take Jesus out of it, it'll actually confuse you. It happens all the time. You've got people who quote scripture and quote this and quote that, and they're removing what the finished work of Jesus Christ as the Word that became flesh in the midst of it. But if you even read like some of the stuff that's actually is confusing through the lens of who Jesus is and what He said and what He did and what He represents, then I think it brings life and light to the whole entire Word in a way that helps us understand how to walk it out.
I think, too, like what you just said is how Jesus is manifested in our life. Everything's confusing until Jesus comes in and makes it whole. I mean, when you read Scripture, when you go through life, when you have questions, without Jesus, there is a lot of confusion.
Yeah, it's everything. And I can't make sense of a whole lot of stuff unless I just go, you know what, like Paul said, like I profess Christ and Christ crucified. That's all we need to remember.
Yeah.
That He did that for us, and then everything else kind of lines up in that.
Written in a billion skies, speaking to this heart of mine. Oh, that I am with all creation, hang
One of my personal favorite songs on the album that I kept playing over and over was Heart Like Heaven. I love this song. You recorded it as the sun went down over Galilee. What an awesome setting to record a song.
Yeah, it was amazing. Again, this song was one of those ones that kind of came out of Mikey, our producer, and we were working on writing the record. It was when they were filming the movie and so forth. And, we're in LA, we're in California actually, in this house. We're writing these songs, and, he would FaceTime his little newborn baby who was 4 or 5 weeks old at the time, every day, and he was a miracle baby to begin with, to be honest. And then he gets home, and the day he gets home, they take him in for his 6-week checkup, and they say, hey, like, he has a hole in his heart. Mikey just calls me in a panic, and next thing you know, they spent the next month in the children's hospital, and little Elliot basically deteriorated. It was a rough season. Man, my heart was breaking, and we're trying to write this worship record. I just was thinking about the heart, like, what gives us the right to even worship God? Again, it's because of what Jesus did. It's not because we're good enough or we can just come and sing the same song that they're singing in heaven here on earth, but we can because of what Jesus did. And so it was really positioning the idea that, like, our heart is singing with heaven, the song of heaven, not because we've earned it, but because heaven came to earth in Jesus. And in the actual song at the end of it, there's this instrumental, and we had Elliot, who got fully healed. He just turned 2, I think. He's walking, He's singing, he's playing music, he's fully healthy, got a huge scar on his chest. But, like, we got his sound of kind of him singing as a baby, and it's really cool. And it's this idea that we're made to sing. God gave us music so that we could connect our heart, our soul, to heaven, and we can do that here and now because of what Jesus did. And it's based on Psalm 51. David prayed, unbutton my lips and I'll sing your praise. And it goes, but the sacrifices of God, he's not impressed with our performance or perfection. What impresses God is a broken spirit, a broken heart I will not despise. And I thought about the fact that Elliot had a little broken heart. And for us, it's our brokenness, our desperate need for God, our knowledge that we can't do this on our own, that actually is the real fuel to our worship. It's the thing that God's looking for more than how good our music is or how well we produce the songs. It was all just kind of wrapped up in this moment. And we sung it there in Galilee, and sun was setting, and it was perfect. It was just a beautiful night, and we all got lost in the song completely, to be honest, because it really is. Even when you see the video, there's this one moment where it's like everybody's looking heavenward, and like it's not scripted. Like, it's just our entire team are just looking up at the sky, like an open heaven type moment, And then on the end of it, Matty Crocker, who wrote the song with me, he just started singing, I'm falling on my knees. At your feet I surrender all. And he just sung it over and over, and we kind of sung it. It was this powerful moment, which was really cool because that transitioned into Touch the Sky, which is a whole song about being on your knees. It was just a really powerful moment that happened there and then, and I'm grateful for it.
So many of these songs are birthed out of hard times that you're going through. I mean, I've had a friend in my life, too, actually lose his newborn baby, and when you get that phone call, you're just crushed. Even though it's not your blood relative. I mean, your family. This is your boy. This is your bro. And to know that God can take those moments and turn them into something beautiful, not just a song, but a beautiful life too. I don't know how anyone could look at that situation that you just described and say God does not exist.
Yeah.
That there's no possible way.
Yeah.
Singing holy, heart like heaven, singing holy, God Almighty on this heartbroken sound, singing holy is your name, singing holy, heart like heaven.
Well, another song that's got your voice on it that's been so huge for you guys is this song, Touch the Sky. And on the Of Dirt and Grace album, you recorded it from the lowest place on earth. It's a song called Touch the Sky, lowest place on earth. There's got to be a story there, right?
The whole record is kind of based on the Beatitudes, and Jesus, he turned the world and its order, even the religious order of the day, on its head, And, we live in a world where people are just, it's always about climbing to the top, success, and in the eyes of the world, and even for us, we measure it on achieving more, doing more, having more, being better, looking better, having more followers, more of this, more of that. And the kingdom of God, and I guess even you call it the politics of Jesus, is the reverse of that. He said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And, it's about humility, it's about surrender, and it's about understanding that you find comfort and peace when you have nothing left. And, it's about finding your life when you're willing to lose it. And it's about finding mercy when you show mercy, all these different things that just it just brought what it means, because we've had success, we've stood on platforms, we've won awards and all this kind of stuff, and you realize it just means nothing at the end of the day. And what are we going to do? Because I'll keep doing this, and I'll sacrifice time at home with my family and all this other stuff, travel around the world and keep doing this, because I know that's what God's called us to do. But if there's no reward really, honestly, in the accolade and stuff, and when you experience that, you go, man, I want the real thing. And so going into the record, the prayer for us was, hey, we don't need to have another Oceans. We don't need to have another song that goes platinum or is bigger or better, because it actually just creates pressure, and you start to strive, and it's painful and it's uncomfortable, and it kills the purpose of what we're doing. And so it spoke to us so much because it took all the pressure off. We go, you know what? We actually can just find God when we are on our knees. And I feel like the story of following Jesus, really, it's about humility and surrender. Everything else is God's doing. Our job is to keep finding ourselves on our knees, and pride comes before a fall. And I feel like you either put yourself on your knees in surrender, or you'll end up there, because God will humble you. And so our prayer was, from the get-go, was to be like, hey, this whole record and everything we bring from here on in, it needs to come from this place where we're submitted to God first. And so Touch the Sky was one of the first songs we wrote for this record. And it kind of says it all, I touched the sky when my knees hit the ground. So when, funny enough, we went to Israel, and we'd planned to record it on the top of Mount Arbel, which is above the Sea of Galilee. It was so windy, and there's tourists and there's people everywhere. And we ran up there, so we had this window of 15 minutes before the park closed.
That's it? They get it done?
Yeah. And
wow.
Literally. We were running with everything, a couple of guys with cables, a couple of guitars. We didn't even know if we were going to be allowed.
Yeah, we were running late. We were trying to figure out a different arrangement. And so we're walking up the hill kind of playing it, and she's going, okay. And they're setting up, and we're on the edge of this giant cliff. I mean, it was literally
very dangerous.
When you see the videos, our drummer and so forth, who wasn't drumming, he had I don't know what he was doing, hitting a rock or something. It's sitting literally on the edge of this giant cliff. It was wild. So we recorded there, and it was really cool. Yeah. But then after everybody had left, we stayed on a few days because we were going to go to Lebanon after that.
It was on the last day that we were there.
It was on the last day we were there, and you hadn't had a day off in about 7 years. And so I think you were having a little spa day or something. Who knows what you were doing.
Snoozing, yeah.
And we went to Masada, which is down by the Dead Sea. And we were up on top of Masada, which is this incredible place. And we looked down, and there was this amphitheater, and Jason, who's one of our guys, is like, hey, they do this dance party there. They call it partying from the lowest place on earth. And I was like, whoa, hang on. I just realized where we are. We're at the Dead Sea. Literally, it's 424 meters beneath sea level. In itself, it just holds so much metaphor. And we're touch the sky. We got to do Touch the Sky from the lowest place on earth. But everyone had gone. And fortunately, we had one acoustic, and we had 3 or 4 mic lines just in case. And so we called Taya.
And an iPad.
And an iPad, yeah. We called Taya. She drove down. We found this spot literally right by the Dead Sea. We didn't have any camera people. We had the dean of our Bible college was with us, because she was just helping us along the road, because she's been to Israel so many times. And she's never held a camera before. We're just stand here and press record. And we had an iPad with a little key sound, and an acoustic guitar, and we recorded it right there as it is, and kind of linked the whole two together.
That's amazing, just to be in those moments right there, and honestly having the ability to capture it too. I mean, that's pretty cool. And when you see the visuals that go along with this record, it's even more impressive to see that.
My heart beating, my soul breathing, I found my life when I laid it down. A bright falling, spirit siren, I touch the sky when my knees hit the ground. Find me here at your feet again. Everything I am, reaching out, I surrender. Come sweep me up.
You've been listening to the More Than the Music podcast, episode 17, with part 1 of my interview with Joel Houston and Taya Smith of Hillsong United. If you've enjoyed this episode or any others, would you kindly give the show a 5-star rating and review inside iTunes? Your 5-star rating and review would be greatly appreciated. In part 2, you'll hear where the remaining songs on the album were recorded in Israel, how a mishap during a worship service led to a pretty embarrassing moment for Taya, and what the band thinks about the Ocean's drummer. I'm Justin Paul. To connect with the show and to even have a chance to win a limited edition autographed Empires vinyl from Hillsong United, just go to wayfm.com/Justin.